You're listening to the Great Big Beautiful Podcast. I'm Cecil Baldwin. Thanks for listening.
Have you ever been to Disneyland?
Affirmative.
That was definitely an e-ticket.
I can't believe all the new gadgets they've got now. For a while, we didn't even have a house phone, not to mention laser discs, high-def TV.
You are listening to the Great Big Beautiful Podcast. This week on the show,
we got to meet our demo. We got to meet our target market, which is all wrong.
Yeah.
You know, whenever the suits are in the room, they think they know, and they don't. And then you see movies like Hidden Figures, and it's made over $100 million. I'm not hopeful. I want to say that I am, but I'm not until I actually see a black woman or even a woman of color cast in a lead role in Star Wars.
Here are your hosts, Jamie Green and Justin Connors.
Have you seen any of the news about the New England Patriot players not wanting to go to the White House? Have you seen that?
I saw some headlines. I am not a sports guy, but
Right.
I did see some headlines about various players saying that they weren't going to go.
Well, there's 6 or 7 of them now, and they're all saying they're not going to go because they don't want to go and see Donald Trump, basically. And the Republicans are up in arms because they're saying, oh, this is disrespectful. It shouldn't matter. It's the president. But their point is, well, Tom Brady didn't go when it was Barack Obama.
Yeah.
And so why?
Yeah.
And, Tom Brady's the quarterback, and he didn't go. So why does it matter if these guys who... But by the way, and I know this is relevant to the conversation, they're mostly African American, and the reason that they're not going is because they don't feel that they're represented in the White House. So that's their beef, and that's legitimate. And
it's a legitimate beef. And I mean, I've been getting so frustrated, obviously, as we all have recently, for many reasons.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, there is still such a thing as freedom of speech and expression in this country, you know what I mean? And much of that has to do with voicing your dissatisfaction or your opposition to something, you know, and this whole idea of, well, he's the president, just get over it. Well, I'm sorry, we just lived through 8 years of a president you guys didn't like, and you challenged his very ability to be president by questioning whether he was even born in this country.
Exactly.
You know, and I mean, the nasty racist remarks were made at every turn for the past 8 years, and the same people who today are saying, just get over it, he's the president, stop whining, are the exact same people in many cases who were complaining about President Obama for 8 straight years.
Well, and from an outsider's perspective, I guess, because I'm Canadian, if people don't realize this, from my perspective, it's mind-boggling to me to see a man be president who blatantly, and I'm sure it's the same for you, who blatantly says the opposite of what something actually is. It's unbelievable to me. And then they get up and they're like, no, it wasn't really like that. It's like this. This is what we really... It blows my mind that it can just be, okay, well, this is the president saying that it's not the way that the facts say it was. Alternative facts, if you will.
You can say it. He lies. I mean,
he lies.
There's no beating around the bush.
Let's not be political. He lies.
He's a liar, and that is, I mean, there's no two ways about it. You know, he is a liar. People who work for him are liars, and they have been caught in many, many lies in just 3 weeks. But what drives me crazy beyond that, because let's face it, a lot of politicians are liars, right?
Yes, of course.
A lot of presidents have said untruths. They've all lied.
Yes, of course.
But none of them clearly have been to the extent that the Trump administration has already been caught lying, making up terrorist attacks and things like that. But what drives me up a wall is I don't want to say inability, but the lack of a desire to call him on it. Yeah. Now, there are some Democrats, there's people in the media, there's Twitter, all those people are calling him on it. But I feel like if Obama had done a fraction of what Trump has done in the last 3 weeks,
I think Democrats would have called him on it.
Absolutely, they would have called him on it, but it would have been like a disaster to his presidency.
Yeah.
But in 3 weeks, it's become so normalized with Trump that people are just like, there he goes again, making up another terrorist attack. You know? And it's like those people in government, our senators and our representatives who would refuse to let Obama do absolutely anything, are now just more than willing to let all of this nonsense slide. And for those of you listening, this is not our normal show. Like, we don't usually get political at all, let alone,
and we tend to lean a non-Republican way in our views.
I mean, this is a show that celebrates creativity and geekiness,
yes.
and we don't like to bring politics into it. But like all things, it's unavoidable. And I talk about this with our guest today, Jamie Broadnax, in that in my Twitter feed, and I'm sure you see the same thing on Facebook and Twitter. It doesn't matter who I follow. It doesn't matter why I originally followed them. It is all politics all the time now.
Yep.
I mean, I follow a lot of different types of people, but it doesn't matter who they are. Everybody's talking the same thing now, and it's become all-consuming, and it's cast a shadow over everything else. And frankly, I've gotten to the point where I feel a little guilty posting about other things, like getting excited about our latest guest, or getting excited about a new show, or I'm going to Toy Fair next weekend, and I'm like, I want to post about it, I want to say something about it, but it's like it's in this sea of political activism, and you almost feel guilty for still having interests outside of our country falling apart, know?
Well, and I was driving in the car with Sarah yesterday, and I said to her, I don't know why I care as much as I do about this, and it's probably just because I have a great, even though I'm Canadian, I have a great respect for America and the office of president. I always have. And to see someone like this in the position, it drives me like, whoa, I get like more upset than I should. But there was one specific thing I was upset about, and that was the naming DeVos to, whatever you say her name, to education. And I said to her, I don't know why I care as much as I do about this, because my kids are not being under that system. Our kids have, I mean, they're not great, but our kids have politicians that are at least somewhat qualified to be education ministers, and I don't know why it affects me so much, because it has nothing to do with me. I mean, I don't even live in America, but I think it's just a humanity thing, the putting someone,
because it's so insane. That's why. I mean,
it's incredible. Okay, Justin Trudeau lied about something, but his lie was a campaign promise. He promised he was going to change the way elections are. Now he's saying, well, Canadians don't want it, so I'm not going to do it. That's not the same thing as the Bowling Green massacre. They're not. You know what I mean? That's the difference between a political lie and a what the hell is he talking about lie. Sorry for swearing. That's what.
And it's true. I mean, I can't even imagine what it's like to be, in Canada or somewhere else looking in. It's got to be like you're looking through into Wonderland. You're looking through the looking glass, and it's like, what the hell is happening?
Well, and the thing is we know there are millions of people, and I don't know if you want to hear this or not, but millions that voted for Hillary over Trump that disagree with what he's doing. So we see the promise. Do you know what I mean? We see that it's there, and we see that there are a large majority. And if you look at it, what is it? Realistically, 20% of people in America voted for Trump, and the rest didn't. Is that what it is?
So something like that.
Woo! You guys just all unsubscribed today.
So today
on the podcast, Jamie.
I mean, the reason we started off talking political stuff is because I do get into some politics, not politics per se, but politically charged discussion and how it relates to our fandoms and the things that we like that usually are there as distractions or things that we can lose ourselves in, but have now sort of, they either feel secondary or they're not as much of an escape as they used to be. But today I talked to Jamie Broadnax, who is the head of the website and podcast and Twitter handle and online media presence that is the Black Girl Nerds. She has created this amazing site and community for African American females primarily, but it is a very welcoming community to sort of come together embrace their fandoms, and be able to discuss the things that they like, with a community of like-minded people. It's if you don't follow her on Twitter, you absolutely should. She's very active on Twitter. Check out the podcast, which is, they just passed their 100th episode as well. And their 100th episode, actually, if you've never listened to it, is a great jumping on point because it's sort of a best of episode. And so it's a clip show. It's the four hosts sitting around and saying, what are your highlights from the past 100 episodes? And they play some clips of their favorite interviews and their favorite episodes and discussions that they've had. So we talk a lot about, like I said, we talk about the current situation, fandoms. She is also heading up a new convention that's going to be coming right here close to me in Baltimore. It's called Universal Fan Con. So we talk a little bit about that. They just were on Kickstarter to get funded. They had a great turnout. They got funded. So that's coming in 2019. She also has started a separate podcast, which is more of a scripted limited edition, I guess you could say. I think it's going to be 9 episodes. It's called Misty Night's Uninformed Afro. And it's I want to say this, I think the 2nd episode has already dropped, but they dive into the history of female African American comic book characters, and they really go in depth with their backstories. So
that's awesome.
It is, and we had a really good conversation. So I really hope you guys were not turned off by Justin and I getting a little bit too political up here at the top.
Yeah, you need just pretend we didn't say that and listen to this interview because it's really
good.
All right, guys, we're gonna go play that for you right now. Hope you enjoy.
Jamie, thank you so much for taking the time to talk. It's lovely to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
I guess we've always tried to not be political on the show, but lately it's been hard to avoid it. So I'm going to do my best to avoid it, though I know it's going to creep in. So I'm going to start off trying my best to be apolitical. So let's start off with something easy and fun. Who would you say is your geek icon? Like, who do you look up to? Who's your role model for what you strive to be doing?
That's a good one. I really love Aisha Tyler.
Yeah.
She's just amazing. She, I really started listening a lot to her when she started her podcast, Girl on Guy. And that's a part of what made me feel really confident to get into podcasting.
Right.
I wouldn't say that got me into podcasting, but listening to her voice made me feel more confident about it. So definitely. And then when I saw her back in the Talk Soup days, because she used to guest host on that show, that was definitely refreshing to see. So yeah, Aisha Tyler would definitely fit in that category. And her book, Self-Inflicted Wounds, confirmed everything that I thought would be geeky about her. Like, I always had these sort of ideas of, maybe she's, this perfect person, and like there's things about her that are flawless, and she's so awkward and just and so imperfect in all of these different ways, and very much like me, and I really appreciate that. So yeah, Aisha Tyler, hands down.
Good answer. You say she helped you sort of find your voice and not get you into podcasting, but sort of give you that courage. What was it that got you into podcasting?
It was the fans of Black Girl Nerds. I had started Black Girl Nerds back in February of 2012, and then got into social media probably about a year into it, and folks would just kind of tag me on Twitter and nudge me and say, have you ever thought about podcasting? And I didn't even really know what a podcast was. And it wasn't until I got on Geek Soul Brother. He had a daily podcast, which was crazy. He doesn't do it anymore. But yeah, he had a podcast every day at noon. And he invited me on his show, and he was like, have you ever thought about podcasting? And at this point, so many people had put it into my ear to do it. I was just like, yeah, I think that this is something I would be interested in doing. So once I committed myself on record, a place that will be indelibly printed forever, that I'll be doing podcasting, I just decided to go for it. And in March of 2013 is when I launched the very first episode of the Black Girl Nerds podcast, and been doing it steady ever since then.
Coming up on 4 years, huh?
Yeah, wow. Yeah. It just dawned on me. Yeah, 4 years.
4 years. Time gets away from you. We've been doing this. We're in our second year now, but still, it seems like just yesterday we just started doing it. So I can only imagine how it just sort of, yeah, you're like, wow.
Where does the time go?
4 years?
Yeah.
Really? That can't be right.
I know.
Any regrets? I mean, it's funny, you hear when you first start podcasting, there's all the doom and gloom stories, and they always say, like 80% of podcasts never make it past 10 episodes or something like that. And it's just like, it's got a worse track record for success than restaurants do, But it's, those that survive, it's something crazy. And I wish I had the statistic, but it's some really high number that never make it to like 15 episodes. But those that do make it after 15 just can go for years.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard that, but that sounds about right. It's hard.
Yeah.
Even though there's a lot of people out there podcasting and it seems like that's the thing to do, that it's very popular, it's a very hard thing to do and to manage, and to kind of come up with new content and to manage a frequency, whether you elect to do it on a weekly basis or a bi-weekly basis. It's just something that takes a lot of time and resources and energy, and I just give a lot of credit and props to everybody that's a part of this space, because it's a grind. It really is.
Yeah. People think it's you just talk into a microphone and you throw it up online, right? And
no.
No, it's not like that, I mean, we're not a scripted one, there's all those scripted podcasts that it's
even harder.
It's journalism is what it is. I mean, there's months of research that go into every episode, and it's the same thing as writing a book in some cases, I mean, but your show is in some respects a lot like ours, where we have different guests every episode. So it's not, I don't like to just roll up into an interview and just say, so tell me about yourself, So I mean, there's a lot of work that behind the scenes that people, I think, just really don't realize. No,
it's a process.
It is.
I mean, you have to wrangle guests together. You have to schedule the guests. You've got to do some research. If you really want to be a good host, you've got to research your guests and then come up with the questions of what you want to ask your guests and engage them. If you have a segmented show, you have to think of different segmented topics for your show. So there's a lot involved in putting together a program, and it's way more than just a mic. And then there's editing involved, and then there's the financial aspect of it. It's hosting fees, and if you decide to upgrade your equipment, getting microphones together and getting the right kind of audio equipment that is able to put out some really great audio for your podcast. So it's a lot.
It is a lot. It is a lot. I understand. All right, moving away from technical podcast jargon, because most people don't really care. I'm curious to know what your thoughts are about the terms fanboy and fangirl. Fanboy has pretty much become a derogatory term in many respects, whereas fangirl is celebratory, and do you think that it should be a goal for everybody to just be fans, or should we instead be celebrating those differences among us?
I mean, I think it's okay to celebrate the differences among us as fans, and if you want to call yourself a fangirl or a fanboy, it's fine. I've heard that the term fangirl in some circles is a disparaging term, and then in some circles it's an empowering term, and it doesn't really matter to me. I mean, use the term for myself as an empowering term, and I use it as a verb when I'm saying that I'm fangirling over my favorite celebrity. So I don't think that it's not a big deal to me, as long as whatever it is that you're passionate about, that you're interested in, it's something that means a lot to you, that's something that you embrace fully. And if the labels bug you, then don't focus on the labels, focus on what is meaningful to you.
Yeah. With everything that's happening right now, the current state of the world, and it seems like every 5 minutes there's another bombshell. How do we balance our passions for pop culture? We're geeks, and there are things that we love. Whether they're books or comics or movies or TV or whatever it is. How do we? I mean, it seems sometimes like I wake up in the morning and it feels just frankly a little ridiculous to get excited about the newest episode of my favorite show, or to get excited for the next Marvel movie. Because of everything that's happening. I mean, is there a balance, or like how can we continue to be fans but still be moral, responsible citizens, or are they not really that mutually exclusive?
I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I think you can do both. Yeah. I think we can walk, and chew gum at the same time, I
hope so.
It's so funny. People, when I'm like live tweeting TV shows and, the president's on TV at the same time, and people judge others for doing that, I always find that ridiculously funny, because why would you want to live in a world where everybody has to do one thing? Like, we're not monoliths. Yeah. Like, everybody has different things that they're interested in. So, I mean, we have to have that escapism. Otherwise, we'll drive ourselves nuts, especially in this, with these next 4 years that we're going to deal with. So, I mean, fandom, if anything, probably there's going to be a huge resurgence of fandom culture now more than ever, because, more people want to create places to escape in and be able to create, worlds where they feel accepted, worlds where they feel like, they have some sense of control in, because now people feel powerless. So I think, if anything, fandom culture is going to grow substantially, and people are going to turn to that even more than what is happening in our reality.
Yeah. I've noticed, and I'm sure you have as well, when I go to Twitter, it used to be all over the place with what people were writing about. I follow a lot of people in comics, and I follow graphic novels, and I follow a lot of authors and things like that, and artists. And everybody used to be talking about things that they were passionate about. They would talk about either their latest project or what was coming up and what their friends were doing and what made them excited. And now it feels just like no matter who they are or why I originally followed them, everybody's talking politics, and everybody is, either I don't follow pretty much anybody from the other side, which could be the problem. But I mean, everybody's the resistance, So it's no longer, XYZ comic book writer or XYZ author or a filmmaker. It's, resistance and political. This is my political channel now. And I mean, are we seeing, I think in our lifetime, it feels like this is a movement where politics is overtly infusing itself into everything, whereas before a lot of the stories that we would be consuming had that political subtext. But I think now everything is becoming very much overtly political. And it's almost becoming inescapable. So where those things that we used to turn to for escapism, they're not helping us escape anymore. There's not really a question in there, but I mean, I'm just wondering if, I wanna believe you, and I want to agree with you that there's going to be this big resurgence of fandom, and we're going to be able to really have that escapist literature or route that we can turn to. Right now, maybe it's only because it's week 1 and it's just been so hellish. It doesn't feel like there is any escapism anymore. It's just sort of, it's all consuming.
I think things are settling in for a lot of people. People are, first of all, we are dealing with a president that uses social media heavily and has knee-jerk responses to everything. And social media is built upon that. So as he has a knee-jerk response to news that happens in his administration, then social media and the internet as a whole has a knee-jerk response to him. And all of these conversations starts to evolve as a result, and it has like this huge domino effect. And then hence what you're saying, the conversations about politics kind of take over, and then it gets very noisy. But I think at the end of the day, the dust eventually does settle, and people do start talking about things that are very important to them. And whether that's comics, whether that's gaming, sci-fi, fantasy, whatever it is in nerd culture that, is of interest to you, those are the things that people hold dear. But yeah, at this point, it's very important for some people to talk about politics, because the politics that's happening in our nation are affecting the livelihood of a lot of us. It's affecting our health insurance. It's affecting reproductive rights. It's affecting our livelihood as people of color and people in the LGBTQ community and people who are Muslim. So it's not something that they can ignore, that they can't afford to ignore. So that's important to have those conversations. But I don't know. I guess I'm a bit of an optimist in a way that I think that you can still have those conversations, those very weighted conversations about politics, but then still talk about the things that are part of fan culture at the same time. And I don't know. I guess because for me with BGN, I've been doing this since I've been on social media.
Right.
So talking about political things like social justice issues with respect to racism and sexism and, gender issues, I've been doing this for a while. So I guess everybody else is sort of catching up because they're like, oh, wow, racism is really real. Wow, there is sexism and stuff that's really happening in our politics. So I guess for some people, they're just now kind of being woke to these issues when these are things that I've been talking about for years. And I guess I just don't see it being as overwhelming as some other communities do.
Yeah. It's interesting. It does feel like a lot of people are engaged. I want to say re-engaging, but I think a lot of people are just engaging for the first time. And like you said, they're just getting woke to this. Their eyes are just opening to see how bad it is in certain communities and among certain types of people, and that previously it had been too easy just to sort of brush off or ignore, quite honestly. And I think maybe that's what this is. It's this first week has been so, I said it before, it's just been so hellish that I think a lot of people have just been really thrown for a loop, and that's why it feels like there's nothing else that they can talk about, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It's very important to engage, and it's very important to have these understandings and to know what's going on. But I really do hope that at some point we can realize that we can walk and chew gum at the same time, and we can still have those things that we love and be able to escape from time to time.
Absolutely. And we can. And I mean, I think, I don't know. I mean, I think it's healthy to talk about these things. If we don't talk about them and ignore them, then we elect Donald Trump as the president of the United States. You know what I'm saying? Like, we really do have to talk about these issues and not pretend that racism exists, sexism exists, that homophobia exists. And if we don't talk about these things, then The elephant in the room is going to continue, and it's just going to eat at the core, and it's just going to blow up in our faces. So I think it's a healthy thing to do, and hopefully this is sort of, I don't know. It's just sort of like, what's the term? I guess it's just sort of a cautionary tale of what can happen when you don't talk about these things, and maybe we can learn a lesson from this man being in office of what not to do when we decide to ignore the issue, and maybe the positive thing is by talking about it, we can progress and move forward, and some good can come out of it.
Yeah, and it's a really important point. I mean, I want to ask you about that actually, because I mean, it is important to talk about. But at the same time, like you were just saying with social media, it's very noisy, and it's social media and Twitter and Facebook, they give everybody this more or less equal platform to make themselves heard. And I mean, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but with so many voices vying for attention, you pretty much have to shout to make yourself heard. And then,
right.
Everybody's shouting and nobody's listening, and we have President Trump. So, right. I mean, everybody says we need to have these conversations. We need to talk about these things. And I completely agree. But how do we get people to start listening? So many people are talking, and so many people have been saying these things for a long time. The problem isn't that nobody's talking. The problem is that too many people aren't listening.
Right.
Is it a matter of amplifying those voices, or is it a matter of silence? I mean, you don't want to silence anybody, but how do you get the right people's ears to open up?
Well, I think going beyond social media, because social media is sort of like performance art, right?
Yeah, very good. I like that.
So instead of just using social media, which is just one method of getting your voice out there, having a website, a blog, and having editorials and writing, really great think pieces about your opinions and perspectives on whatever issues it is that you really want to push out there for your readers, having a podcast and talking about these issues with marginalized voices, speaking publicly at events, speaking at colleges, whatever it is, doing TED Talks, things of that nature. I think that just putting yourself out there as someone that, look, I have a platform, and these are the things that are very important for me to speak out on, and I really want to be able to communicate and put this out there for everybody out there to hear. So these are the platforms that I have beyond just social media, I think is important. But social media is a great tool, and I'll never diminish that because I built the brand of Black Girl Nerds on social media. Mm-hmm. But I think that that's just one of many different tools that you can use to put yourself out there. But yeah, I think, it's good to show that you're well-rounded and that you can do more than just send out a tweet.
It's that's the trick, though, is putting yourself out there. I think you need to have a fairly thick skin today, and with the social media. I mean, it's easy to say that that's just one tool, but that's the tool that is going to be used to tear you down. It's
hard. I mean, it's, that is something that I am battling with myself. If you're someone, and it depends on what you're interested in. If you're like a writer and you want to write books, but you also want to do more than just express yourself through books, and you want to do public speaking, that's a challenge, and that's something that's a challenge for me now, and I'm trying to break through that fear of public speaking. But I look at it like this: I have to put myself outside of myself and focus on what's important, and that's community, and allowing people to see that this is more than just Jamie, that this is about focusing on a community of marginalized women that haven't really been represented before in media. So for anybody out there, whether you're someone that's, you know, a blogger, a podcaster, you know, whatever it is that you are creating, sometimes you have to step outside of your comfort zone to express your art, and it's worth it when you do it, and then you realize, you know what, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah, the first time is always the worst. no matter what you're doing. I mean,
That's
yeah,
true.
I mean, it's even, you know, starting a podcast is very similar. The very first time, you're terrified. What if nobody likes me? What if nobody listens? But after a while, it's like, you know, you build up your audience, you build up your brand, you find the people who, you know, you're the like-minded people that you're talking to, and it goes much easier. And I mean, I can't even imagine being the target of some of the hatred and vitriol that people have to deal with online.
Right.
I've not had to deal with that, and I can't imagine having to. I don't think that I think, quite honestly, I think that it would destroy me. Like, I think that would push me away from just trying to do anything. So hats off to the people that I see online who are just pushing through all of that and standing firm and speaking even louder because of that. And because I don't think that I could do it. I don't think that I have that kind of I'd like to think that I could, but honestly, I don't think that I have that kind of courage. I couldn't put up with some of the shit that people deal with day in and day out, just for saying the right thing.
Yeah, I mean, I can't put up with the levels that, like, Anita Sarkeesian deals with, but I've dealt with people that have said some shitty things about me on the internet, and it's tough. It's tough, but again, I just look at it. I look at it from this perspective. It's not personal. Mm-hmm. Like, I know that, like, these people don't know me from Adam. Like, they don't know me personally. So I am an anonymous person to them, just like they're an anonymous person to me. And it's an insecurity on their part of whatever they're dealing with inside. And they have a shortcoming, and they want to project that shortcoming onto this anonymous person on the internet. Yeah. So I try not to take it personal when I see attacks on my character, and that's the best way that I try to deal with it. Is it easy? No, but you know, that's the only way I can just keep it going and just try to push forward, because unfortunately, it does go with the territory of being a public persona on the internet.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Let's move to something a little bit happier, I hope. Let's talk Star Wars for a minute.
Sure, yeah.
It's no secret that Star Wars has faced a representation problem, whether it's racial or gender. And it's made some progress. I mean, we have to give them credit where credit is due. And I think they gained a lot of goodwill before Force Awakens, with some of the casting announcements, including Lupita. But then she ended up being this motion capture character, which I thought was just incredibly whatever. I mean, I liked the character, but when you've got one of the most beautiful women in the world, why do you make her this little tiny CG character? I don't understand. But at this point, with what we know about Episode 8 and casting and the Han Solo movie and the future of Star Wars, are you still hopeful for more women of color in Star Wars, or is it sort of just like they're just going to do whatever they do?
Oh, man. I mean, to be hopeful is to be disappointed at this point, because it's like a 40-plus year franchise, and they still haven't gotten it right. Even with this last film, Rogue One, which they got it right for the men, but even with the women, they still didn't hit the mark with representation of women of color. And, you know, this Episode 8, we still have the same cast from Episode 7, so I don't see much change happening there, because Maz Kanata is still an alien, as far as I know. Unless
she doesn't change.
Unless she's going to turn into a princess or something. I don't know. But, I mean, she's pretty much Yoda. But I don't know. I would like to see Star Wars be able to reflect what's in the in the expanded universe, because as far as I know, and I don't know a whole lot about it, but from feedback that I've gotten from fans and followers of Black Girl Nerds, that the expanded universe is very diverse with women of color. And even in the comic book, we've got Sana Solo, and Sana Staros, and she's a Black woman in the comics. So I don't understand why they seem to get it right in the publishing side of things, but not so much on the cinematic side. But that speaks to Disney and Marvel and the publishing side of things when it comes to comics, period. Because for some reason, it just doesn't, they don't adapt that when it comes to movies. They get it right when it comes to the books and the publishing, but when it comes to movies, they just are like, well, we got to meet our demo, we got to meet our target market, which is all wrong.
Yeah.
Whenever the suits are in the room, they think they know, and they don't. And then you see movies like Hidden Figures, and it's made over $100 million at the box office at this point. So anyway, but yeah, I'm not hopeful. I want to say that I am, but I'm not until I actually see a Black woman or even a woman of color cast in a lead role in Star Wars. I mean,
at this point, just cast in a role would be welcome,
right? I mean, we saw the one member of the council, which I don't even know if she was given an actual name.
I'm sure she has a name, but it wasn't said on screen.
Yeah, in Rogue One, and that was about it. But yeah, there wasn't.
I mean, I'm such a Star Wars fan, and I mean, even at this point, I'm looking at, what are you guys doing? I mean, it's like, they're missing so many opportunities on this. And I mean, again, Rogue One had, did wonderful things, but again, you're right. For women, it kind of missed the boat again. And I think it's not for lack of opportunities. I think it's for lack of nerve. In like you're saying, for the cinematic side though, because publishing and in comics, they're more willing to take those risks, but I guess it's just because the movies cost more and they are a little bit more skittish, which I don't know if that's ever going to change, unfortunately. I hope that it does.
I hope it does too, because the box office has proven otherwise.
Absolutely.
With franchises of other films, and even with just diversity as a whole, like Fast and the Furious movies, I don't understand why they seem to feel like that diversity doesn't seem to work. But yeah, Rogue One did very well with the men of color cast that they did have. So hopefully going forward, Star Wars will continue that and actually cast women leads in the role. So
fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Yeah. Talk to me about Universal Fan Con.
Oh, yeah. So Universal Fan Con is a con that is dedicated to inclusivity. So we are focusing on women, people of color, the LGBTQ community, and people with disabilities. And this con is going to launch in late April of next year in Baltimore, Maryland. I'm partnering with the Black Geeks, and we're really excited about this. We're actually in the stages of building out the website right now, and we're working on the design of the logo. So we're doing that now, and I'm also reaching out to celebrity guests, and believe it or not, I've been getting a lot of yeses.
Awesome.
So once contracts are signed, I can release those names to you. But I'm really excited that there's so many people that are also just supportive and just as excited about this con. And everybody that backed our Kickstarter, we had launched a Kickstarter when this was first announced. This was announced back in December, and I was a little skittish at first because this was around the holidays, and I'm thinking, oh my God, people are, they're strapped for cash, they're not going to donate. But we launched a $25,000 Kickstarter, and we made twice our goal. That's so, yeah, it's great. And all of the original backers will get lifetime passes to the con. So because for us, this isn't a profit venture. This isn't a way to try to get famous or anything like that. This is a community for us. BGN, the Black Geeks. I remember the Black Geeks when I first started Black Girl Nerds. They are also podcasters, and they also have their website. We've been building our brands and doing our thing for the last 5 years, and we've always been about community. So that's what this con represents. It's for the fans, and they come first. And it just made sense to give all of the original backers that had faith in us a lifetime membership.
That's great.
And we're involving them in every aspect of this, to even having them vote on the best logo. Like, we just put out a Twitter poll of which logo you think would look best for the site. So we're really involving them in every aspect of developing this con, and we're really excited. So that's going to be happening next year.
That's amazing. Why Baltimore? It's my backyard, so I'm not complaining, but I'm just curious
nice.
why. Yeah, I'm just curious why you picked it.
Well, I'm in Virginia. I'm in Virginia Beach, and the Black Geeks, they're in DC. So
okay. Made
we're
sense.
just kind of nearby. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, Baltimore. It's we've got a few good shows come to town, but it's always welcome to see more, and I'm really excited for it. Is this?
I've never actually been to Baltimore.
You've never been to Baltimore?
I know. I get that reaction. Ever since I announced this con, I've gotten that reaction. I've never been to Baltimore, which is kind of crazy because I'm not that far away.
Yeah, you should definitely come to Baltimore Comic-Con this year. It's one of the best Comic-Cons in the country.
Okay.
Yeah, it's one of the few shows that is still very much about the books and artists and authors, and is not overrun with like media celebrities and guests. And among the pros, they think very highly of the show, and it's a really, really good show. So I definitely recommend coming up. It's like, write it off as research or something.
Nice.
Is this the first time? I mean, have you organized a con before, or is this all learning for you?
This is the first time. This is the first time for me and the Black Geeks. I mean, I've been a con goer now since starting BGN, but definitely as an organizer, it's a first. But what's really cool about this is the people that's involved, aside from myself and the Black Geeks. We've got a lot of volunteers that are veterans that are like, hey, I've been doing cons for 20 years. We want to help out. So, yeah, there's a lot. Rest assured, there's a lot of people behind the scenes that know what they're doing that's helping us out with this con. So we are making sure that our I's are dotted, our T's are crossed, and that everything is going to be done according to plan. And that's why we wanted to plan everything a year in advance, so we have plenty of time to make sure that things are done correct and done right. Yeah. So
that's exciting.
Very, very excited for this.
Yeah. Something else that you've got coming up very soon, I think, is in addition to Black Girl Nerds, you have also started up Misty Knight's Uninformed Afro.
Yes.
And for those listening who don't know what that is, why don't you just give us tell us what that is real fast.
Yes, that starts on Wednesday, actually.
Oh, wow.
Very excited. Okay. So Misty Knight's Uninformed Afro is a new podcast series that I'm executive producing, and it's about Black superheroines. So it kind of came about because the co-host as well as the researcher on the show with me, Stephanie Williams, had put out a tweet that actually went viral, talking about the lack of Black superheroines, and she just got a whole bunch of like mansplaining tweets that kind of came at her, just kind of explaining, oh well, that's not true, and look, we know that there are a lot of Black superheroines out there, but the representation is few and far between. And my thing was, well, what do we really know about these women? So I really wanted to do a series and just focus on their stories, because even myself as a comic book reader, I don't know a whole lot about them. So in the series, we talk about Storm, Misty Knight, Monica Rambeau, Lunella Lafayette and Riri Williams, Vixen, as well as the Dora Milaje. And yeah, it's really exciting. Nine episode series. We break up the Storm episode into 2 episodes, and then the Misty Knight into 2 episodes as well, because it's just there's so much to unpack. But yeah, that's going to be coming soon.
That's amazing. So obviously, podcasting is a thing that you like. So, but I mean, what about the format do you find so compelling? Like when that idea came out, you're like, okay, I think we really do need to dive into the history of these, female African American characters and show people that, who might not otherwise know, this is the history of these characters. Why did that to you scream podcast over anything else?
Well, I had just wrapped up a season of another podcast. All these podcasts. I had just wrapped up a season of a podcast series that I host called Get It Right by Rewire Radio, Rewire News. And that is the fusion of social justice issues with reproductive justice issues. Okay. And I just really love the format of that show. It's a Q&A. It's me interviewing celebrities and also experts and stuff. But I just really love the way the format was structured. So I kind of, when I decided to go with this show, I wanted to do us kind of having like an NPR style dialogue, but also have like post credits, and also have, okay, tune in or on the next episode, and then have like little snippets of us having these discussions from the previous episode. So I just wanted it to be sort of like in episodic television when you when it has like those bumpers and stuff. Like, I kind of wanted to have that format. So that's kind of what you're going to hear when you listen to the show. And I've been listening to a lot of shows from Gimlet Media. They have some really great podcasts, and sort of been adopting their style as well with the way they've structured their shows, and going off of that. So yeah, that's what I've been doing with the formatting, and I'm really happy with it. And then all of the music that we've used on the show is all original music. Stephanie's husband actually is the one that did all of the music, and it's really great. So it's just, I think what's really exciting to me about this podcast is, everything is so organic and homegrown, from the music to the research. Like, we actually created this really detailed outline of what we were going to read from the comics. So we're talking about the creators, the issue numbers, and we go into depth into each of these characters. And then I reached out to the girl that developed the Black Girl Nerds website, and I was like, can you create a website for this podcast? So we got a website, and then I went ahead and reached out to the girl that helps our videos, and I was like, can you do a YouTube video with me? And I've been really promoting this out, and I launched it strategically around Black History Month. So I just really wanted to, get folks excited for this. And I think, I don't know, I feel like this show is really going to resonate with folks. I hope so, at least.
No, I think so too.
It's needed. I think, having an opportunity for people to hear voices of Black women talk about Black superheroines, it's not something that you normally hear on a podcast. True. So it's important.
Yeah. I wanted to quickly congratulate you, because Black Girl Nerds just passed 100 episodes, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so congratulations. That's a milestone.
Thank you.
The flip side of that, I mean, because we've done like 120 something, so we're, when you get past a certain number and you've got this huge library, it could become difficult for new listeners to find a way in. So I'm wondering if you have 1 or 2 episodes that you would recommend for new listeners who might want to explore what you do on the show and but see 100 episodes and don't necessarily want to start with episode 1. Maybe want to start with something else. Do you have a way in for those people?
So would I have 1 or 2 episodes?
Yeah, they're like 1 or 2 episodes. They say, if you want to see what we're about, these are the episodes I would really recommend you listen to first.
That's a good question. I really like the start. We actually, on our 100th show, did the best. You know what? I think that would be the one. Mm-hmm. Our 100th episode was our best of show. So that was actually clips of some of the best episodes, some of our favorite episodes, I should say, over the years. So if you want to listen to that, then you can kind of get a sense of some of the ones that we've liked the best, from celebrity interviews that we enjoyed to roundtable discussions that we enjoyed as a collective. And we discuss why we liked those clips, what resonated the most with us. There's a moment where some of these clips got very emotional for us. So definitely episode 100 would be a good one to pick, because you get a hodgepodge of a little bit of everything of what the Black Girl Nerds podcast is all about.
Yeah, I'll second that too. It was a great episode.
Thank you.
Do you have dream guests? Are there one or a few people that you're just like, if we got him or her, like we could just end tomorrow?
Oh well, I did get one this year already, so scratch that off the list.
Check.
So Shonda Rhimes would definitely be a dream guest. I would love to have her come on the podcast just because she's Shonda Rhimes and I've been a fan of hers forever and I admire her so much. And also Oprah Winfrey. I just worship her. So those would be guests I would love to have on the podcast.
Fantastic. What are you most looking forward to in 2017?
Well, I'm looking forward to building out the rest of the team for Universal Fan Con and, allowing us to get to finish up the rest of our next phases. I'm really excited for the response of people when they listen to the new podcast series, Misty Night's Uninformed Afro, which you can listen to on iTunes. And I'm excited for a lot of events that I'll be attending throughout the year. I'm going to several conventions, so you'll see me at South by Southwest in March, Klexicon also in March, the Toronto International Film Festival, that's later in September, and then all of the Comic Cons from San Diego and New York Comic Con. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Awesome. Jamie, thank you. This has just been wonderful. It was just a great conversation. I wish we could have, another half hour, 45 minutes, but I've taken too much of your time as it is.
This was great. It was really lovely talking to you. I really enjoyed it.
Fantastic interview, as always, Jamie.
Thank you.
Maybe we'll end this by not being as political. I don't know.
Let's not.
It feels hard to not be political when, like, the stake of your, especially you, the stake of your children's future is on the line. Do you know what I mean? So it's hard to just sit back and, well, I'm not gonna be political because I don't want people to get mad.
Well, everybody is at this point, and that's what I was saying. You turn on Facebook or Twitter, and it doesn't matter if it's a comic book writer, artist, just friend, random fan. Everybody's talking about the same thing. And how can you not? Really?
Exactly.
I mean, if you're alive and breathing, you have to either be up in arms, offended, or on his side. And everybody has an opinion,
Exactly. So we're gonna go away from politics. No more politics from now on.
Please.
Just geek stuff. And thank you so much for listening to our podcast and hitting subscribe. If you unsubscribed already, I'm sorry.
But we're not listening anyway.
That's okay. That's okay. We have to speak up sometimes. So thank you so much. If you want to join in on the conversation, we see people tweeting us. I just wanted to give a shout out this week to our tweeter of the week, Jamie McHugh, who listened to our Cressida Cowell interview and tweeted about it. Thank you, Jamie. We are watching you on Twitter. Well, that sounds creepy. We see you on Twitter. We see you on Twitter, and thank you. And Franklin, as always, man, you're the bomb. We are at the GBB Podcast on Facebook and Twitter. And also, guess what? Our logo is now on the Star Wars Celebration site. That's pretty cool.
We're a supporter.
We're a supporter of the celebrations, and Jamie's going to be going there, so that's cool.
Most likely. Hopefully I'll have some news to share in the coming weeks.
Yes. All right, guys. I'm Justin at 140 Justin C.
I'm Jamie at the Roarbots.
We will see you next time on the Great Big Beautiful Podcast.
Take care.
Bye.
This podcast has been a production of the Geek Dad Podcast Network. If you've enjoyed this content, please consider supporting us at patreon.com/geekdad.